I want to go across first to Professor Banerjee and lay out at the outset your philosophical objections to the new farm laws. Indian agriculture is caught in a rut at this moment. It needs to be reformed. Of that there can be no question. You, however, don't like the approach of the government, the laws and the manner in which they've been brought. Explain to everyone who's watching, why are you opposed to what the government is doing through these new farm laws? Professor Banerjee.
Let me be very clear. I am very much a supporter of reforms. I think especially exactly this issue of, how we will sustain, paying MSP over global market prices forever is an issue that we haven't tackled. And what that does, for example, is get us to grow paddy in Punjab, which is a disaster. The water table has fallen, I think, from 25 meters to 120 meters in many places in Punjab. That's an unsustainable fall, and Punjab is hardly the right place to grow paddy. So I think there are, and in addition, growing paddy creates this problem of burning the stalks to get the land ready for the winter crop, and that again creates the pollution issues that we're tackling in Delhi all the time. So I have no doubts that we have to reform. So I should be very clear. I am all in favor of some version of reform that I think the government is right in thinking that reform is needed, and that some version of reform will eventually have to be called on. And I think that, and my sense is that even the farmers understand that. I don't think it is anybody quite sees this idea that, well, we can keep burning stock because right now that's kind of thing is a defensive reaction. So I want to more discuss what I think are the kind of the missing pieces of the law, which I think my sense is that it's not so much that the law is wrong in what it says, but it sort of leaves out certain key pieces which I think need to be spelled out. And so I don't think of it as being an insurmountable problem, but I think it's a problem that probably it should not be tackled at this moment, because I think the pandemic did, if you read 23%, 24% fall in GDP in one quarter, then you get panicked. And that panic has general effect on people's willingness to be flexible and all kinds of things. And I do think that I would not have pushed for the reform at this moment. I think there is a sense in which people are really acting extremely
So let me contest what you're saying, Professor Banerjee, by saying just this. In India, typically, big ticket and much needed reform has always been pushed through in a crisis, whether it was the balance of payment crisis of 1991, which saw the first wave of liberalization, or the farm law reforms now. When is there ever a good time, sir? So when is there ever a good time for tough reform in a country like India?
I think there are two big differences. One is that, in fact, the set of people who had potentially a lot to lose from the 1991 reforms were much more, they were probably much less sort of homogeneous group of low-income people. I think, in fact, as we know, even they eventually did okay. But I don't think there was the same sense that, this is going to target one particular group, and that group might be relatively low-income people. So I think that's one part of it. Second part of it is that, this particular pandemic is one that has sort of, we're kind of been knocked out of gear everywhere. The world is kind of grappling with it. It's not exactly the standard issue economic crisis. This is much worse than that. You have a 24% fall in GDP is unheard of. It's short term, but nonetheless unheard of. So I think to say that this is, another crisis and we should just do reforms in the crisis. I mean, there was nothing in the crisis that dictated doing the reform. Remember the balance of payment crisis, we were forced to do the reform. There was no choice. then we could say, look, we have no choice. Right now, everybody knows that there was a choice being made of the timing. I don't think those are at all right.
But you've concluded, Dr. Banerjee, that the farmers in India will lose out. What makes you so certain? Because the government claims that nothing is being taken away. All that's being done is that farmers are being given a new choice, that they can sell outside the APMC Sarkari Mandi if they so choose, if they get the right price. What then makes you so certain to conclude that farmers will lose out?
Forgive me, I used the wrong word. I'm not at all sure that the farmers will lose out. What I'm sure of is that they feel they'll lose out. And I think that they may be wrong, but why are they fighting? They're fighting because they feel scared. And is this a time when they would be more likely to be scared than at other times? I would say yes, because it's a scary time. It's not, and I think that the government had no particular reason to do it now rather than later. I mean, other than the fact that, maybe it thought that nobody was watching or something, but I don't see a reason why. That's different from the 1991 reform, which were forced upon us. We had no choice.
You're saying farmers are fighting. Who's fighting, Dr. Banerjee? It's farmers largely from Punjab and to some extent from Haryana who are most agitated. I was participating in a bureau conference with our reporters from across the country, and they told me in states like Maharashtra, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and elsewhere, farmers have anxieties most certainly. They have emotional support towards the protesting farmers, but they're not protesting in the manner in which those farmers who've been parked on the borders of the national capital for the past 35 days are. So it's not as if farmers are fighting as a homogeneous geographical context. It's farmers from some areas who've been the beneficiaries of this artificial MSP APMC system. They're the ones who are most agitated, sir.
No, I don't. It doesn't have to be for any. I've not said that every single farmer is against it. All I'm saying is I can see why they are anxious. And you didn't let me get to why I think they are, what I think is missing in the law. What is missing in the law, which is some description of what are the safeguards if we have, for example, what I think farmers are articulating, some particular business groups end up sort of being outcompeting the local aratias, and they all go out of business, and now you have a single monopolist buying. Now, I don't know that that's at all the most likely outcome, but it's one outcome that could be spelled out by the government and said, look, we are going to do certain things. We can guarantee that the price will be, a floor on the price will be this or that or the other. They could say more. I think, as you said very rightly, they have a reason to be anxious, and they are anxious all over the country. And they're anxious partly because they think that this is going to be a situation. They're going to be left in a situation facing a few corporates, possibly only one, and that those corporates are not going to be in the control. The government won't have the mechanism to step in to make things protect them. I think if the government came out with a very clear and guarantee that this is a price guarantee for which doesn't have to be 150% of the world market prices, but some price guarantee. I think price risk, there's no particular reason why the price risk should be taken by some of the poorest people in the country. The price risk, agriculture price risk is huge. World market prices go down, up and down massively. We overall, I would say we have actually cheated the farmers in the sense that overall we actually keep our prices, the farm gate prices too low relative to what they could be. So I don't think we have been doing this. But it's true that this MSP system stabilizes the price. It gives.
So I want to contest what you're saying on two counts. First, on the assertion or the fear that there will be a monopoly. To which economists Ashok Gulati and Ramesh Chand say that private corporations like Nestle and Hatsun have been buying milk from hundreds of thousands of small milk producers side by side with government cooperatives for years. Rather than exploiting the producers, they've helped expand the demand for their milk by expanding markets for milk products. So it's not as if the entry of a private corporation will lead to an immediate creation of a monopoly scenario.
Government cooperatives were buying at the same time. Remember, it was Amul side by side, a kind of a government-sponsored, privately organized cooperative, which was buying side by side. There was an alternative. So the question is, could the government set up a set of alternatives that would provide competition? That would be one way to.
No, but the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee, the APMC mandis still continue. It's not as if that system is being dismantled. Therefore, how do you say that the government price support system will be done away with, sir?
The government, the APMC mandis are still just locations. They're the people who are actually doing the buying are individual small traders who could go out of business. I'm not saying all of this is going to happen, but to anticipate people's fears, you could say, look, we are going to set up a certain setting up a certain set of large purchasing organizations which will be competition for the corporates. Like for example, the milk cooperatives, which, if you don't want to sell to Nestle, you can sell to Amul. And that particular structure of the market where there is a kind of engineered competition is actually a relatively common model in lots of these kinds of products. In sugar, in all of these, there is some amount of where there are small farmers who make large investments and then get returns after many months. There is many countries, including, China and Europe, have some ways of stabilizing the price, ways of.
But can I push you back by saying that system exists? When the government procures in the manner in which it does across the country, stores it in the Food Corporation of India, that government mechanism of setting up a base price, buying from the farmers already exists. And that's not being done away with. And the government wants to strengthen the APMC system.
If you read what the people are saying, they think it's going to be done away with. That if they actually believe that, the claim that the MSP system will be completely unchanged, I don't think the Punjab farmers will be worried because they'll be selling at the. But I think, and I would say there the fault is people like me who say, in the same breath, that there should be reforms. They say that the MSP system is a source of the problem. So they hear it when they hear this statement that the MSP will have reforms, but we won't change the MSP system. They are right in being suspicious of that, because the discourse has always been that at the core of the problem is the MSP system.
But a lot of the opposition, including, sir, in the comments that you made over the past several minutes, have been about fear, about concerns, to which the Prime Minister replied back saying, na hua hai, na aage chal ke hoga. None of this has happened. He believes none of this will happen, and that this specter of fear is being created.
But why not deal with it? I don't think. So my point is exactly that, which is that if the Prime Minister is right that this is something that is actually not binding, that you don't need to actually use these options, then creating certain options which will protect the farmers will be costless, because you don't have to use them. The market will take care of all the eventualities. The government will not need to do anything. So why don't you set up some costless options? So I do think that taking the trouble to explain, take time, maybe slow down this process, take time, establish a set of institutional responses, like these are the things we'll do to protect the farmers. I think that is the right way to move the conversation. I don't, if the Prime Minister is right and that this is actually going to be all good, then in the end these protection mechanisms will never be used. So why not set up protection mechanisms?
Can farmers who have these fears, anxieties, largely in two states, be allowed to hold reform or these changes for the rest of the country to ransom? Is that even fair? Or should a way be found of keeping those farmers out? You've got anxieties, okay, let's continue with the current system that you have. Let's implement the reform in the rest of the country and see how it goes.
Well, I think that, for example, that would be an option if the state could buy, instead of having a central the part of what this bill has is a lot of centralization of these powers, which could be given back to the states. So the states have, some states have done it before. The notoriously and much discussed Bihar, which I think the Bihar case is completely blown up because it's not comparable to Punjab. But why not then allow the states to do it? Create a legal framework for the states to do it. There's no reason to push it through from the center if that is the argument being made. I don't disagree. Why not let the states?
I also want to challenge what you're saying about setting a minimum price limit, that you should not let the risk go to the farmers. But how can any government mandate into law the minimum support price without knowing how much the production in a particular year will be, how much the supply is, how much the demand is, what the global trends are, what's the global price? In many commodities, prices in India are already more than international prices. There was a report done by our data intelligence unit which says that about 16% of the food grain we produce already goes waste. The government is procuring more than it needs to because it's politically expeditious. This is wasteful. Every year, sir, in a state like Punjab, the water table recedes by 0.74 meters. Why should we continue with this wasteful system?
I think that's the reason. The point is not to forestall reform, but to create a process by which the reform is brought in without people feeling that they're being somehow forced into a situation they don't want to be in. Those are different statements. I started by saying reforms are necessary, reforms are essential. So we're not disagreeing.
No, but you also asked for a minimum price. You said that there should be a minimum floor price. How can there be a minimum floor price unless you know how much the demand is, how much the supply is? That's how prices get determined, sir.
Well, it could be that it's tied to the world market price, that it will be always at least this much, or cost to the cost, or you could tie it to any number of things. After all, it's something that you could insure on global markets. You could, it's not that the prices,
but the farmers are not seeking a price linked to global markets. They're saying, you tell us, hame kitna milega, you mandate that into law, which you realize much better than I do is economically impractical.
It's a cost plus X%, and you set a cost back. I don't see a reason why that would be, you could say that that's a minimum is cost plus X%. I don't see there's no reason why we couldn't create some form of insurance for farmers. I think that's pushing the point. I think the market has some virtues, and I absolutely want the market to do more, but I don't see a reason why we couldn't provide better guarantees to the farmers.
Professor Abhijit Banerjee, you've explained over the last 20 minutes your objections to the farm laws. Dr. Arvind Panagariya has been listening to what you're saying. He will now respond to each of the points that you've made, and then we'll come back to you for a final counter. I want to go across to Dr. Panagariya on the first point that Abhijit Banerjee makes, that the timing is not right. The Indian economy in the first quarter of this fiscal collapsed and contracted by 24%. This is not the time when, for the largest occupation in our country, you change the way they function. People are fearful, they have anxieties. Reforms are a good idea, Arvind Panagariya. Abhijit Banerjee argues that the government got its timing wrong. Dr. Panagariya.
The timing of anything can be questioned, Rahul. Abhijit didn't mention labor law reforms, which were also done in fact the same parliamentary session as the farm bills were brought in. Because there was no agitation on labor laws, we didn't hear him object to those reforms. But if you look at it, actually, labor law reforms were as big or bigger than the farm reforms. So that's one point. The second is that, look, this is a reform which has been underway at least since 2003. And the discussion started 2 or 3 years prior to that. Many of the states have been doing this. Most importantly, what are you doing here? You are not changing the status quo in any substantive way. APMC markets are there. They will remain there. And in fact, the central government cannot even remove the APMCs. This is done under the state laws. And so therefore, it is up to the state. So Punjab government can step in and assure, and certainly Punjab farmers or Haryana farmers do not think that their state governments are about to dismantle APMCs. So I just don't see that option that the farmer currently has still exists. It is additional options that is being introduced to the farmer.
So, but let's build further on the point that Dr. Banerjee made about the manner in which the reforms were brought. You know, the lack of public consultation, the lack of announcement brought through a reform, inadequate parliamentary proceedings, not being sent to a standing committee, that is being questioned not just by Professor Banerjee, but by many who are apprehensive, not with the reforms per se, but the manner in which the government sought to push these through. Arvind, Panagariya.
Yeah, I think this also is, a lot of this is after the fact, because there is a movement, we are questioning these things. Reforms, in fact, were brought in June through the ordinance. And what the bills have done is to convert the ordinance into laws. I don't think even Professor Banerjee at the time really spoke against these bills, said that timing is wrong, timing is bad. I doubt that there was that much of a discussion. But after the fact that there has been a movement that the farmers are agitating now very aggressively, this is a bit of an afterthought on it. But also, you know, in terms of discussion, look back at the report number 62 of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Agriculture. This whole report is about agricultural marketing, APMC reforms, and it in fact goes at length saying that, look, you know, the monopoly of the commission agents at in these markets is very problematic. There is huge amount of corruption and so forth. So parliamentary committee, the standing committee itself, which has, you know, 31 members from all parties, itself has made this recommendation. And this is like, we are talking about, you know, 2019 December. So it's not as though discussions were not happening. And as we all know, these reforms had been underway through the state instrumentality for quite a long time.
But sir, so even in a country like China, which is authoritarian in its political system, when price controls were being done away with and state procurement was being reduced in the early 90s, they went province by province, district by district, going across states, showing proof of success in limited patches, giving farmers a taste of what their life would be when this reform was introduced, and then scaling it up across states and then through the country. Here, in the middle of a pandemic, we are pushing through radical sweeping reform. Could this have been done incrementally, winning over the confidence of the farmers before pushing this through nationally, sir?
Look, you know, we can argue about this continuously without end. But the point is also, how long does the poor farmer has to wait to get justice? After all, through the state instrumentality, it has been tried for 17 years. And it has not happened fully. I mean, in some states it has happened. Progress is variable. I mean, Bihar is an example where full reform did actually happen.
And it didn't work out well. In a state like Bihar, while production and yield went up, the price that the farmer is earning and the income of the farmers actually has come down after 2006. So you mentioned Bihar as a case study for agricultural reforms where APMCs were done away with. Actual data suggests that the farmers in Bihar are worse off now than they were earlier. So that reform didn't go as per plan. If it failed in Bihar, it could fail elsewhere.
Not the data that I have seen. Not the data that I have seen. In fact, both Ashok Gulati and Ramesh Chandra will tell you that after the reform, in fact, the gap between the MSP and the market price in Bihar has declined from what used to be 30% before the reform to 20%. They say 15 to 20%, so I'm being conservative, saying 20% after the reform. And certainly the agricultural incomes in Bihar have not fallen, they have gone way up. In fact, this was a period during which agricultural growth in Bihar was one of the highest. So I'm not sure which data you are looking at, but the data that I have looked at certainly don't show what you are suggesting. So
can I just say, sir, that in Bihar, paddy is currently being sold at 900 to 1,000 rupees a quintal against the 1,868 price set by the center. So it's not as if after the APMC system was done away with, that farmers started getting better price for their yield. It is true that when the pack system came into play, the yields went up, production per hectare has gone up, but the price realization of the farmers as a fact hasn't gone up. It's still much lesser than the MSP that farmers in Punjab and Haryana benefit from. In fact, there are instances where people take truckloads of paddy from Bihar, bring it to a mandi in Punjab and sell it because they get a better price here.
No, of course, anybody who can bring this to Punjab will want it because that's the MSP. That only says that the MSP is higher than the market price. Also, the numbers you have quoted are only for one current year. You have to look at what the numbers were before the APMC reform and what the numbers are after the APMC reform. Nobody disputes that the MSP is higher, significantly higher than the market price. I myself said that even after the APMC reform in Bihar, there is a 20% gap. This is the average gap that these gentlemen have computed. I mean, I haven't done these numbers. I just rely on Ashok Gulati and Ramesh Chand. Both of them have written about it or given interviews on it, and that is their numbers. But you've got to do before and after. I mean, you can't just quote, at a point in time, the gap between the MSP and the market
No, but
price.
it's stopped 2005 to now is about 15 years. So it's correct that wheat production has gone up from 1379 per kg per hectare to 2797 kg per hectare. In the same way, paddy production's gone up, maize production's gone up substantially. So net, between 2011 to 2018-19, India's growth rate for agriculture was 7.5%, agricultural productivity, but in Bihar it was 13.3%. So that is correct. The problem is that the price realization for farmers is not increasing. There is still a huge gap, which is why Abhijit Banerjee argues that why should the price risk fall on the shoulders of the poorest person in the whole chain, the farmer?
Rahul, you got to look at it before APMC reform and after APMC reform. Has the risk increased or decreased? What I'm telling you is that because the risk has actually decreased, going by the numbers that I have seen from Ramesh Chand and Ashok Gulati, I would say that APMC reform made the farmers better off, not worse off. That is all limited point. It's not, it's nobody's case that MSP is lower than the market price. Of course, market price was lower than the MSP and it remains lower than the MSP.
So let's deal with Professor Banerjee's point about safeguards, about risk. In this uncertain occupation, why should the burden of risk lie on the farmer? Professor Banerjee's argument was that there should be a cost plus X% formula, not necessarily linked to international prices, could be domestic cost plus a certain percentage. Why is it irrational for the government to give the farmer some guarantee of price support?
Look, Professor Banerjee first started talking about MSP reform of MSP itself, saying that, look, how long are we going to do this? Can we keep subsidizing this forever? But then he wants to actually introduce yet another system in which the government guarantees the cost plus, meaning guarantees MSP to everybody. Already you got 90 million tons in your food stocks. How much more can the government collect? And we know it that if you give MSP on the entire crop, then all of it will have to be bought by the government. You will not find too many market purchasers of it. And mind you, you are not raising risk any further by the reform. I mean, you keep saying that, why are you raising the risk? You are not raising the risk because the APMC is there. The old system that existed is there. Why do you keep assuming?
But is it? Because in the manner in which the original, allow me to contest what you're saying. In the manner in which the original 3 bills have been got, the taxes and levies applicable on government mandis continue, while procurement from the private operators is bereft of any tax and levy. Now the government in an amendment is promising to change that, but the original intent of the bill was that private procurement will be bereft of any fee and levy. Government procurement will have fees and levies. That just creates an imbalanced playing field where the government procurement system has a natural disadvantage. You start with the fees and levies that need to be paid. In some cases it's 8 to 10%, in some cases it's lesser, but you're already building that into the cost. So it naturally makes the government mandi uncompetitive in comparison with the private mandi. Over a period of time, trade will shift. Naturally, it's only natural.
I mean, are you saying that the government will want to procure outside the APMC mandi?
No, sir, that's not the point I'm making. I'm saying in the manner in which the three laws have been passed, the government procurement has taxes and levies built into it, which means that the farmer will get less, whereas in the private procurement, there are no taxes and levies which the private players will have to pay. Therefore, they will have better margins, they'll be able to give better prices. So initially, it will seem that trading with the farmers, trading off the farmers with the private sector gets them a better deal, but that will lead to the government mandi system collapsing. That's the fear that farmers and people like Yogendra Yadav and others are voicing again and again.
Well, you know, you can keep raising these fears, but I mean, you're saying that the government is not trustworthy, but the government is saying, the Prime Minister is saying that, you know, the system, that my procurement has been there and it will remain there.
No, sir, so that's not the point I'm making. I'm making this point
I still do not see the connection.
When you sell to a government mandi, there will be a certain cess and a levy that operates. When you sell to a private player, that cess and levy will not play. Therefore, it will seem that it is more beneficial for the farmer to sell to the private sector initially, which means over a period of time, the quantum of trade with the government mandi will come down. And the balance will shift from the government mandi very naturally. I'll give you a simpler example. It's like Jio and BSNL. Because it's not as if BSNL has been wound up, BSNL still continues as the government telecom operator, but farmers fear that while it continues as a straggler, the actual trade, the actual consumers will shift to a company like Jio. That's the fear that's voiced again and again.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that the customer is worse off because of the private companies coming into telecom?
Farmers, sir. Farmers.
Think of the customer. Okay. So farmer is the one here. Farmer is the one here. Farmer is better off. Look, Rahul, you have got the logic completely backwards. If the farmer gets better price in the private market, let the farmer sell it in the private market. If the farmer will get better price through MSP, which currently he does or she does, they will come to the MSP, come to the APMC to sell it at the MSP.
No, so let me explain. Let me explain the logic.
I don't get it.
No, I'll explain. I don't fully buy the logic. No, I don't fully buy the logic. Dr. Banerjee is listening. We'll go back to him later. But here's what the farmers are apprehensive about. Initially, the private sector, because they don't have any cesses, levies and taxes, will offer more money to the farmer will go there, procurement from the government mandis will start coming down because they have unfavorable terms of trade. Over a period of time, it starts shrinking. Later, now the buying power is with the private traders. They start pushing prices down, putting farmers in a corner. If you're up against a corporate, you have a small parcel of land, naturally in that trade, the advantage is with the big corporate. They will, after year 3, year 4, year 5, start offering lesser. Initially, yes, the farmer will benefit. Later, they will start to suffer because the buying power will be with the private operator. That's the fear.
No, I disagree with that analysis, Rahul, completely. If the government says that my MSP is going to be above the market price, it will remain above the market price. If government procures it in APMC mandi, you get better price in APMC mandi at MSP. So your fear has to go further. If your argument has to hold water, which is that the government itself will withdraw from procuring at MSP. That is what you have to argue. But as long as the government is procuring what it is procuring at MSP, which is above market price, whatever the market price outside the mandi, MSP will remain higher than the market price, and the farmer will have that option. So that option is not being ended. I think this logic, the way you are constructing, is flawed. I'm sorry, I disagree with that.
Well, let me just clarify. This is not my logic. This is the logic that we've been picking up again and again when we've been doing various shows with farmers, with their representatives, their leaders. The BSNL Jio example is one that is cited often and again. That the government operator continues, but it's ineffective, ineffectual, and virtually of no use.
Look, BSNL example itself is flawed because there is no government procurement going on in BSNL. I mean, you can say that the government is still, using the BSNL in for its own employees, and they continue to suffer their bad service. But there is no support. There is no MSP equivalent there. Here, the government procures at MSP, and it says I will continue to procure at MSP. how can the APMC mandi be any worse off?
Now
Then,
you've got a situation where even the likes of Ashok Gulati, who came out and initially supported the farm laws, are saying there are apprehensions and concerns as a result of which the government should suspend farm laws for 6 months, compensate the farmers, reach out, win their support, explain to them what you're doing. At this moment, put these reforms in abeyance. How do you respond to this?
So that's a very different argument. That's a very different point. And that's a political call for the government to take. I mean, in a way, that's a judgment to which the government will have to come. And you know, if that is what solves the problem, I have no problem with that. I mean, you know, but suspending it for 6 months, is that going to solve the problem? I am very seriously doubtful, because the demands of the farmers are that take the 3 farm laws away completely, withdraw them. That is the demand. So, you know, if 6 months delayed solves the problem, that's great. I have no problem with that.
Dr. Arvind Panagariya, you've spoken, you've laid out a strong, passionate advocacy of these farm laws. I want to go back now to Professor Banerjee. I promised that this would not be a debate and back and forth. You're too seasoned and imminent for that. What we'll do instead is get him to respond to the philosophical points that you've made. Professor Banerjee, I'll start with what I found the most compelling argument made by Arvind Panagariya, which is that risk is not going up in the manner in which you and other economists have been voicing concern. If risk had actually gone up as a consequence of these reforms, what you'd said would probably be correct. Risk is what it stays. The reforms could potentially provide better price realization, which over a period of time could improve life for farmers. So it's not as if you're making it more risky to be a farmer than it is right now. You've heard this point, you heard Arvind Panagariya. Let's just hear a counter. Professor Banerjee.
I guess I feel like Arvind wants to have it both ways. When he wants to say the MSP stays, but then the MSP is the source of the problem. So in some ways, you know, either the MSP is so high that farmers only sell to at the MSP, and therefore the corporates are irrelevant, or the MSP really is going to be brought down and therefore it will become irrelevant. You can't have it both ways. I figure we need a path. I want to be more honest and straightforward. I want to say we need a path to get out of these extremely inflated MSPs. I agree with Arvind. The piling up of grains in these warehouses is a problem. On the other hand, there are mechanisms that countries have taken to deal with that. For example, you could expand PM Kisan and give people cash payoffs to deal with the fact that you won't give them MSP support. You'll have to find some mechanism for compensating the people, especially in years when there is high risk. So you could tailor it to what the world market price is relative to our cost, for example, and then say that, look, when the world market prices are low relative to our costs, we're going to make certain cash payments. There are all kinds of mechanisms that could be explored. But I think the idea that somehow, A, the government is going to keep the MSP system unchanged, and B, we're going to do the reforms, and then the reforms are still going to be very good, is sort of inconsistent internally. That's and I heard that time and again in what Arvind was saying.
No, but can I counter by using the same analogy you threw and throw it back at you, that are you also wanting to have it both ways? That you accept that the MSP system is flawed, you know that you can't guarantee prices higher than world prices, and yet when an effort is made to change that, you don't like the effort being made. And therefore, you too, Dr. Banerjee, are wanting to have it both ways.
Rahul, I started by saying we have to do reform. So I disagree with that. I said that explicitly so that I put my cards on the table. So I don't at all say that we can get away with not doing it. The question is there a way to offer something that's actually reasonable, which is risk mitigation at a large scale, which is to say that, whenever the world market prices are too low, we'll protect you in this way or that. I think there are all sorts of intermediate options we could take. I think, therefore, I don't think I'm both saying quite transparently that I think the current MSP system, especially for things like paddy, is completely unsustainable. It's creating environmental damage that will be almost impossible to turn back. So I have no problem acknowledging that we have a problem. The government is trying to solve an important problem. I'm fully sympathetic to the general tenor of this 17 years of discussion that Arvind brought up, which is that these are issues that need to be dealt with. Having said that, I still go back to my 2 points. Is this the time to do it? This is Ashok's point as well. And I'm not also saying we should never do it, but I think saying that right now we're going to not go back. I said this many times on TV actually. We are not going to give up on these laws, but we are going to put them in abeyance for now. Would be a reasonable way to start a conversation where you at least acknowledge that there is a real set of worries that people have. I think people want to be partly recognized with the legitimacy of their worries.
I want to take up the second point that Dr. Panagariya made, which had compelling logic, which is that if the MSP continues to be above the market price, and if the government is assuring farmers again and again in a democracy, not in an authoritarian system like China, in a democracy there's a public declaration from an elected government that MSP system will continue. If they were to do away with that, there would be massive political consequences of such a move. Therefore, why would someone like you believe that over a period of time the government procurement system or the APMC mandi system will collapse if the prices there continue to remain above market prices? That's improbable, sir.
But I feel like it's not clear to me that, I think that's the question. And that's why I'm trying to say that the real goal should not be to have prices permanently over world market prices, but to provide insurance, to have prices that are, when the world market price is high, then we could provide some way of taxing the extra gains there and then pay people back. That's a form of insurance. Some version of insurance, price insurance, would be, I think valuable. And the usual way farmers do that in the US is by selling in futures markets. And we don't have those, and small farmers cannot participate in those futures. We don't have them in the relevant way for the small farmers. So therefore, providing some form of insurance, price insurance, is a valuable policy choice for the government. I don't think that that's the same thing as permanently paying 50% more than world market prices.
Arvind Panagariya also had a very strong counter on BSNL versus Jio, saying if the farmer is the customer, who can argue that he'd be better off with BSNL? Look at what Jio has done. If that is what Jio or whoever the Jio equivalent in the agriculture sector does to the agriculture sector, to the farmer as a customer, then more power to him for doing so.
Large literature on Amazon having been on producers being hurt by Amazon. So that's the exact equivalent in my view. Is that the question is, if there is a single corporate buyer like Amazon, Amazon has been very nice to consumers and relatively harsh to producers, and that's well known. There's a large literature on it. So I don't see that as being. I would say the analogy is Amazon.
Okay, that's a good counter. I have one final point to you on a state like Bihar, which is cited as an example of what could go wrong if the APMC system is done away with. Arvind Panagariya had a counter on that, which is to say, don't look at the differential between MSP now and what the Bihar farmer is realizing. Look instead at how things were prior to 2005 when the PAC system came in.
Making that conceptual point is completely right. What the exact analysis of that is, I had a plan to dig more into it, and I have not done it yet. I don't want to have a view on whether Bihar was a success or failure. That's a question that you can ask me in a week. I will have studied it.
Okay.
I saw what Ashok Gulati has to say, but I don't know what was behind what he did, the empirical work.
I want to go back very quickly and lastly to Arvind Panagariya on that very strong point that Abhijit Banerjee makes about the power purchase capability of a company like Amazon. There was a report that went viral very recently of how a small tripod manufacturer was producing tripods which are doing really well. Amazon Basics copied that tripod price for function for function and virtually sent that small company out of business. That is what a monopoly buyer can do. If one of these big companies, and I won't take any name, gets in, establishes monopoly or a monopsony over a period of time, they will be in a position to dictate prices. It's happened with Amazon, it's happening with Facebook, it's happening with Google. Why cannot it not happen with Indian agriculture? Arvind, Panagariya.
Well, Rahul, it's already happening in Indian agriculture, and that's happening in the APMC markets. There's only one commission agent to which, or there is only one mandi to which the farmer can go.
No, but that's a government-run mandi, and the government ultimately is accountable to voters because there's an election. Amazon or one of the big boys like Google are not accountable to voters. They're only accountable to their shareholders and to their boards.
Yeah, wait a minute. The way the mandis have been run, with the commission agents monopolizing and in cahoot with the wholesalers setting the prices without the farmer ever being able to set his price or her price. This is not Amazon. You know, your analogy there is also completely flawed, because there is no APMC market against Amazon. There is an APMC market in farming. And what you are doing here is actually to APMC, you're adding another option. I mean, it's simple. APMC market is still there, and it's not going to go away, because as long as the government is procuring at the level it is currently procuring continues, that APMC market will remain unchanged. Why would it change?
No, because what is left unsaid and is true is that we don't need as much procurement as we do. We are already procuring much more. No one's saying this. Privately, everybody will accept it, and it's true, and you know, you also, even though you're not in government, will not say that we should be procuring a lot less than we actually do, because we don't need as much food grain for meeting the government's food obligations, sir.
What we should do and what we would do are two different questions. What is the Prime Minister saying? Prime Minister is saying that we will continue to procure. Look, I mean, the debate then becomes very different. If you are saying that we have to, along with these three bills, we have to also consider another law which scrapes the whole MSP system, then it becomes a very different debate. Debate currently is with the MSP, trusting the Prime Minister, with the MSP procurement remaining at its current level. Do the farmers face a worse outcome under the three laws? My contention is that no, that is not the case. Whatever options are currently there have been promised to remain there, and what you are doing is opening more options. You are increasing competition, not reducing competition. Even if there is a corporate that comes in to buy in the private market, it's an additional buyer, not one less buyer.
Okay.
So there is no contradiction of the kind that Abhijit Banerjee was trying to point out in my logic. In my logic, simply was this, that as long as the government at its current level continues to procure at the MSP, it gives the farmer more option, not less.
Dr. Arvind, Panagariya, Professor Abhijit Banerjee, over the past hour, you've illuminated us with the power of your argument. You've laid out two opposite points of view on these new farm laws. I am richer and wiser at the end of this conversation, having learned from both of you. I thank you deeply for having taken out time to join us for this special broadcast. And hopefully, as Abhijit Banerjee said, he'll go through the Bihar example, and maybe we can have him back with us again for round 2. And hopefully, we can find a way of introducing reforms and ensuring the farmers are happy at the end of it. That's the customer who needs to be happy. There has to be a buy-in. You can't say we are introducing reform, we are changing your life, without winning over the trust of the Indian Kisan. But Abhijit Banerjee has spoken, Arvind Panagariya has spoken. That's about as incisive and informed points of view as you'll get to hear. I leave it to you, our viewers, to decide what do you make of the argument put forth by these two world-class economists, Professor Banerjee and Dr. Panagariya, for joining me on the News Track.